Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into something really critical for companies today, truly understanding their carbon footprint. It's far more complex than just, what comes out of a smokestack, isn't it?
Absolutely.
And to really get a handle on it, we rely on the greenhouse gas protocol. It breaks emissions down into three distinct scopes. This isn't just some accounting exercise. It's more like a strategic roadmap, really, for pinpointing where you can actually decarbonize.
Exactly. And our mission today, well, it's to cut through some of that complexity. We want to give you a shortcut to understanding these three key emission categories. But maybe more importantly, what they mean strategically and some of the maybe surprising challenges each one presents for figuring out a company's true climate impact.
Right. So when companies start measuring their impact, Scope 1 direct emissions, that's often the first stop.
Usually, yeah.
These are emissions from sources a company actually owns or controls directly. But let's take a complex industry, like chemical manufacturing. What are some of the maybe hidden complexities there, things that might surprise someone about direct emissions?
Well, what's fascinating here, I think, isn't just the number of sources, but the realization that for real Scope 1 decarbonization in chemicals, you often need fundamental process innovation. It's not just about burning fuel more efficiently.
Okay.
So you've got stationary combustion, think natural gas and on-site boilers, furnaces for heat and steam, very common. Then there are process emissions, which are kind of unique to industries like chemicals. These come directly from the chemical reactions themselves, not the burning of fuel to power them, like CO2 coming off ammonia production.
Ah, okay, separate from the energy use.
Exactly. And you also have fugitive emissions, basically unintended leaks, methane from pipes, maybe refrigerants.
The little leaks that add up.
They definitely can. And finally, mobile combustion fuel used in company-owned vehicles like forklifts on site or, the company car fleet.
That makes sense why companies focus there first. It's tangible, it's stuff they own. But you mentioned energy use. A chemical plant must use a ton of electricity they buy from the grid. Where do those emissions fit in?
That's precisely Scope 2. It covers indirect emissions specifically from purchased energy.
Purchased energy, got it.
So primarily this means the emissions generated at the power plant that produces the electricity or maybe steam or heat that the company buys and consumes. And for a chemical plant with all its pumps, compressors, lighting, the electricity use is huge, so Scope 2 is substantial.
Right.
And if you connect this to the bigger picture, where that plant is located matters a lot. Is it on a grid powered mostly by coal or renewables? That hugely impacts its Scope 2 footprint.
So the grid mix is key.
Absolutely. And the insight here is companies aren't just passive consumers anymore. They're looking at things like renewable energy certificates, RECs, or maybe longer-term power purchase agreements, PPAs, to actively decarbonize their electricity supply.
Okay, so Scope 1 is direct, Scope 2 is the energy they buy. But then there's the everything else category, the one everyone calls the big B. Scope 3, all other indirect emissions.
The big one.
I imagine this is where the real complexity and maybe the biggest hidden opportunities actually lie. What are some common pitfalls companies hit trying to tackle this?
Well, Scope 3 really raises this important question about responsibility, responsibility beyond the factory gates. The core insight, I think, is that Scope 3 forces a company to think about the entire life cycle of its products. The big challenge is you're dealing with emissions from activities you don't directly control.
Right, influencing others.
Exactly. So for a chemical company, examples are everywhere. You've got upstream emissions, like emissions from extracting the crude oil needed for plastics in the first place, or transporting those raw materials via third-party trucks or ships. Then you have downstream emissions. That includes transporting the finished chemical products, but also, crucially, emissions from the use of those products and their end of life. Think plastic incineration or the energy needed for recycling.
Wow, so use and disposal too.
Yes. And beyond that, it includes things like business travel flights, hotels, and even employee commuting. Plus, capital goods, the emissions embedded in manufacturing the new machinery and buildings the company buys. It demands collaboration, huge amounts of data, influencing your supply chain. It's a completely different kind of effort than managing your own smokestacks.
Yeah, you can see why it's such a challenge.
Yeah.
But also why it's so significant for a real decarbonization strategy. So wrapping this up, what does this all mean for you, listening in?
Well, it really means that understanding and trying to measure all three scopes is fundamental now. It lets companies move beyond just the, let's say, easier direct fixes. It helps them address the core of their climate impact, including all those complex emissions hidden away in their supply chains. It pushes towards a much more holistic, sort of systemic view of sustainability.
Absolutely. A holistic view demanding cooperation right across the value chain. Makes you think, next time you pick up, say, a plastic container, consider that whole life cycle.
Yeah.
How might really understanding a company's full carbon footprint, especially those tricky Scope 3 emissions, radically shift your perspective on what it truly means for something or someone to be green?